How every Amtrak route got its name, Part 1 of 3. The Asella was created as part of Amtrak's initiative to upgrade the speeds of the Northeast Corridor. The name doesn't actually come from a foreign language. Rather, it's a portmanteau of the words accelerate and excellence. The train was known as the Asella Express until 2019, when the word express was dropped, leaving it only as the Asella. The Adirondack is named after the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York. According to a French missionary to the area in 1720, the Iroquois people used to use the word Hadaronda, meaning eaters of trees, to refer to the Algonquian people, who didn't practice agriculture and had to survive on tree bark during harsh winters. According to some sources, Hadaronda became today's Adirondack. The auto train was originally created by a private corporation of the same name, that ran from 1971 to 1981, operating car-carrying trains between Florida, Kentucky, and Virginia. Amtrak inherited the Virginia route in 1983, at which point it dropped the hyphen between auto and train. The Burkshire Flyer is named after the Berkshire Mountains of western Massachusetts. These mountains were named in 1761 by Sir Francis Bernard, then governor of the province of Massachusetts Bay, in honor of his home county of Berkshire in southeastern England. The name Burkshire Flyer may have also been inspired by the Cape Flyer, which is also a tourist-oriented service in Massachusetts. The Blue Water got its name from the Blue Water area of Michigan, also known as the Thumb, which features 140 miles of beautiful Lake Huron coastline. This train was originally called the Blue Water in 1974, renamed the Blue Water Limited in 1975, the International Limited in 1982, and finally the Blue Water again in 2004, when Toronto service ended. The Borealis is a new route that'll begin operations on May 21st of this year, hence why there's no picture yet. It's named after the atmospheric phenomenon known as the Aurora Borealis, or Northern Lights. The term Aurora Borealis was coined by Galileo in 1619, coming from Aurora, the Roman goddess of the dawn, and Boreas, the Greek god of the north wind. Side note, I'll be on the inaugural Borealis trip from Chicago to Minneapolis in just under 2 weeks, if you want to come say hi. And of course, this was only possible because of my generous Patreon supporters. If you want to be one of those supporters, join today for early access to videos and bonus content. The California Zephyr is named after a train operated jointly by the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad, the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad, and the Western Pacific Railroad. Zephyrs were originally streamlined stainless steel trains. Their name comes from the Pioneer Zephyr built by the Budd Company. This was in turn named after Zephyrus, the Greek god of the west wind and rebirth. California got its name from a mystical island of the same name in the fictional story of Queen Calafia, as recorded in the 1510 work The Adventures of Esplandian, by Castilian author Garcia Rodriguez de Montalvo. Today's train is a combination of Amtrak's original San Francisco Zephyr and the Rio Grande Zephyr, the last privatized passenger train west of the Rockies. The two were merged into the modern California Zephyr in 1983. The Capital Corridor began service in 1991 under the name Capitals. This refers to the fact that the train goes from Sacramento to San Jose. Both cities were originally the capital of California. San Jose when the state was first admitted to the Union in 1850, and Sacramento from 1854 to the present. The Capitol Limited began operation in October 1981. It was named after a previous train which was a flagship service of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. The name refers to the Capitol Building in Washington, D.C., one of the route's two endpoints. Limited was a common train name for elite services in the 20th century that ran overnight and made very few stops. The Cardinal was named in 1977 after the Northern Cardinal, the state bird of 6 states through which the train runs. The Northern Cardinal can be found in the eastern U.S., southeastern Canada, and much of Mexico. The Carolinian is named such for its service to North Carolina. The name for the Carolinas comes from the British province of Carolina, formed in 1663 by King Charles II, and was named in honor of his father, Charles I. To reference the earlier grant of Carolina in 1629, Carolina and Carolina in turn come from Carolus, which is Latin for Charles. This train was first named in 1984 and has been in regular service since 1990. Amtrak Cascades is named after the Cascade mountain range that it parallels. In the early 1800s, the Lewis and Clark expedition passed through this mountain range via the Columbia River. The last obstacle to their journey was the former Cascades Rapids in the Columbia River Gorge. As many settlers and traders followed the expedition to move out west, the great mountains that loomed over the rapids were called the Mountains by the Cascades, and the name eventually stuck. The city of New Orleans is named after a former train on the Illinois Central Railroad, which started operation in 1947 as a daytime complement to the Panama Limited, a night train dating back to 1911. This train was the subject of Steve Goodman's 1971 song City of New Orleans, made famous by Arlo Guthrie and Willie Nelson. When Amtrak took over the route, they experimented with several service configurations, but eventually opted to run the Panama Limited night train and cancel the day train. However, due to the endearing popularity of the song, The train was renamed back to the city of New Orleans in 1981. New Orleans, in turn, is derived from the original French name La Nouvelle Orléans, which was given to the city in honor of Philippe II, Duke of Orléans, who served as Louis XV's regent from 1715 to 1723. The French city itself is named after the Roman Emperor Aurelian, originally being known as Aurelianum. The Coast Starlight is named after two prior Southern Pacific trains, the daytime Coast Daylight and the nighttime Starlight. Amtrak has been using the blended Coast Starlight name since its founding in 1971. The Crescent is a direct descendant of the Southern Railway's Southerner, a streamlined passenger train that ran from 1941 to 1970. The name, however, comes from the Crescent, another Southern route, which took a more coastal route to New Orleans via Mobile. These two routes were combined into the Southern Crescent in 1970. Amtrak took over the train in 1979 and simplified the name to Crescent. The name Crescent refers to one of New Orleans' nicknames, the Crescent City, referring to the bend of the Mississippi River as it flows through the city. And that's A through C in the alphabet of Amtrak names. Be sure to subscribe for part 2, where we look at names from the Downeaster to the Missouri River Runner. Special thanks to Avery the Cuban American for helping me research and write this video. If you were to name or rename an Amtrak service, what would you call it? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next video.